Hey, everybody, it's Colin from Colin's Backstage Pass for another edition of live music. Week after week, we're going to talk to music venues, and the bands themselves. We've got a great one here today, and then other notable folks in the music space here in the Lake Norman area. So we're going to give you a little peek behind the curtain, if you will, of what goes on in the live music space. And today, I am so excited and so happy to have my boys from Phonik here. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you guys. Absolutely. Yeah, great to have you.
Good to be here.
This is exciting for me for a lot of reasons, right? Because I'm going to say, and Stefan, keep me honest, I was probably one of your first fans back, 20 something years ago, right? In the US.
Maybe
Right?
third in sport fan. Yeah. You were in the top 10 for sure.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, I know I heard a lot of speakers back in the day, so I got to get some credit for that. But anyway, I know a lot of folks have seen you, they've heard you. You guys are one of the longest running Charlotte-based bands, and if you go through the list, there's probably only a handful of bands that have still been doing this as long as you guys have. So, welcome. Thank you for being here. And Stefan, I'm going to go to you first because you're the only one that can answer this.
Oh boy.
Tell everybody how it started and what got you here.
Whew, that's a long story.
Okay, we only got 30 minutes, so you're gonna have to cut it in.
Well, we were playing in Montreal and Quebec area where we're all French Canadians. I didn't speak a word of English back then, and that was 45 years ago. And Louis' cousin, the guitar player Louis Fizet, his cousin Jason Phillips, came to see Louis in Montreal and saw us play live in Montreal and absolutely fell in love with the band. And at the time we were playing on the originals, our songs, and he loved the product, loved the image. And I mean, he went on a rampage to convince us to move us to the US and start playing across the Southeast mostly. So we all had jobs, and I was pretty serious with a girlfriend back then, but anyway, past the details. So he convinced the band to move. So we packed our crap and moved to US. And it was kind of quite the adventure, but we moved down here in Charlotte, and we start playing around and spreading out. So yeah, that's how it basically started. And none of the three other members are in the band anymore, obviously. But we first met Mike, a year and a half?
Well, even you guys have only been here 6 months when I auditioned.
Yeah, so one by one, the original other three members left, and Mike was the one to join the band.
First American.
I don't know if we can call you an American. You're more like a alien from Jersey.
Yeah. My Jersey alien.
And then Rick,
they would annoy the hell out of me by speaking French, and I'd have to yell at them.
Oh yeah, no, especially my French was pretty bad. The other guys were not too bad, but me, I couldn't speak at all. And then Rick joined the band about 14 years now.
It's been about 18 years, Steph.
18 years. Who's anniversary? You're a bad boyfriend.
Oh, okay. And Jim, I'm gonna say what, 12 years then? If it's 18 years, Rick?
Yeah, well, about 12 years, 12, 13 years, something like that. Yeah. I can't.
Yeah. So Mike is pretty much, I mean, we're all original bands from Phonik now. The other guys are, I mean, it was way back then. So the original Phonik is the four of us now.
Yeah. So I got to ask, and I've never asked you this, so I'm really asking you this for real. What does Phonik mean?
It's Jason actually came up with the name at the time. He said euphonic. Phonic means something that's is enjoyable to the ear, and he wants
euphonic.
Euphonic.
He marks the word spelled with an E.
Yeah, that's true.
Really pleasant sound.
And then he gave it a twist we decided to give it a twist with the U-PH or like K at the end.
Right.
So yeah, and our original stuff was a lot more pop rock melodic. So the name fitted pretty well the band at the time.
It's kind of a Brit rock style, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. So
British rock.
Well, people don't remember it because it's not a word, right? It's you guys created your own word, and so people always, I'm sure they misspell it. You know, they look you guys up on social media, and I'm sure they misspell it, but
Yeah,
you find you eventually.
A short story about the name. We used to have another name and we wanted to keep it. And it was in French, it was Les Arrogants, means the arrogance. And Jason said, you guys are not arrogant at all. It doesn't fit you at all. So flush that name. We'll find something else. So yeah, it became Phonik.
I love it. I love it. So you started off with some originals, and I know that you used to play those, and I don't see those so much in the set list lately. But what I guess, and this has certainly transitioned over the last bunch of years since everyone's joined. But what was the music like? And what were you guys focused on early on, and where has it ended? Is it the same? Have you seen a transition? I mean, that's anybody that wants to jump in on that.
Mike, you want to say something? Or Rick? Jeff?
Well, as far as the transition, like from originals, well, we had, you know, the gigs were, I guess, a lot different. Like the gigs we were playing and seeking out. You know, we still were mixing, doing other type gigs, but we were doing other like obviously different venues for the original stuff. But we were also pursuing like music festivals and like showcase opportunities. Where you know, specific events that were held like on the East Coast for different exposure, like the Atlanta Music Festival. There was a couple in Florida we did. I know we went up
Dewey Beach.
Where else? Yeah, we did the Dewey Beach Music Festival for a couple of years.
South by Southwest.
And yeah, South by Southwest. And, you know, and we were doing, you know, but it kind of slowly morphed. I don't know. I think what happened was, you know, we had, I wouldn't say we were getting tired of playing the originals. I think when the band members started changing, it really changed the whole dynamic kind of the band and the writing, you know, especially, you know, I know when Louis left, because I know Louis and Steph did a lot of the writing, and again, the dynamic change, and you know, and I understand, you know, Rick and Jeff coming in, maybe there wasn't as much of a drive or desire to continue the originals, because then it seemed like, you know, I guess as we were getting older, we saw the cover thing as more of a money making opportunity, because you know it's, you know, playing originals. You know,
Yeah.
I think trying to make gigs weren't you know necessarily paying the bills, but you know, and we were getting older too. We were starting to get married and having kids, and it was like, you know, we didn't want to travel as much, so you know, we kind of morphed into an original band, a cover band, and you know, just less and less originals, more and more covers, and that's basically just how it happened. You know, it just kind of happened. But by itself, there wasn't not necessarily a conscious decision, you know, with the personnel changes and all that, just kind of happened on its own. And then us just, yes. And you know, and we also were very conscious of, you know, doing songs that we liked. You know, it wasn't like we were trying to mold ourselves into a specific cover band genre. Like we weren't, you know, it just so happened, obviously, you know, the 90s was our wheelhouse. Like, you know, I guess the stuff we grew up or, you know, was close to us. So we do a lot of that.
Gotcha.
And, you know, that's kind of how it happened.
Awesome. So Rick and Jeff, you guys show up there. This was an originals band, and now they're playing covers, right? And now you guys show up. How much influence did you guys have individually on what the next round of music was going to look like? Or were you just kind of following along?
So when I first joined, Louis was still in the band, and we were still doing some original shows. So one of the first shows I did was a showcase in New York, where Louis actually got kicked out of the bar after the gig for playing New York too many times on the jukebox. The bartender literally came up to us like, "You guys gotta go. There's killing in here."
That was not where we showcased. It was a different place though.
And so we did the showcase, then we went out afterwards, and that's kind of how it ended. So we were still doing some original music when I first joined. Then when Louis went back to Canada, I think that's really when the originals you kind of took a back seat. Like Mike said, Louis and Stefan were the primary songwriters, and so once Louis left, that kind of took a little wind out of the sails as far as writing goes. And then Dan Hood, the guitarist before Jeff, he came in, and it, at that point, it just felt like it was definitely shifting more towards doing the cover songs and stuff. As far as like influence on the music, I think one of the biggest things that happened, our music actually started changing as far as the cover songs that we play. Like Mike said, we originally didn't start out like, hey, let's do these songs or whatever. It's just the 90s stuff kind of fell in the wheelhouse.
Mhm.
But when COVID hit, we were actually on our way to Savannah for a St. Patrick's Day gig, and where all the gigs got canceled. And for some reason in South Carolina, they were still cool with people coming and playing.
Yep.
We ended up playing the same venue week after week after week during COVID.
Mhm.
And to the point where we're like, guys, what do you know that we can just play at the gig this weekend to play something different? And so there were quite a few songs that kind of came into the mix at that point where we started, some more of the classic rock, like some of the Led Zeppelin stuff that we do now, some of the Van Halen stuff that we do. That all just came from like us calling and saying, hey, do you know this? Do you know this? Let's just play it this weekend. And so that I think that's where really, and then, you didn't mention it, but us having the U2 tribute band now, Rattle and Hum.
We'll get there.
That obviously, that's obviously where all the U2 stuff comes from, which we only do, maybe 2 or 3 of those a night, but that's where all of that stuff came into play. Was
Sure.
having the U2 come together, U2 tribute together.
I get it. Yeah.
What do
So
you have?
Yeah, I get it. So Jeff, what was when you show up, you're the last man, new guy to the party. These guys have been around a while, right?
Yeah.
How does that feel? I'm sure you're not the only guy in the world that's ever showed up, new to a band. So what is that like?
Yeah, I remember. It's funny because I remember, I came from playing an original band as well, with some people, and I remember at the time, so you guys came in 99, 2000. I remember coming to see. I was out with a friend, and it was a very rainy St. Patty's Day, and we decided we're going to go downtown to Re-Roz, and you guys were doing the show at Re-Roz outside under a big tent. Yes. And I actually picked up your original CD. So that's the first that I knew of these guys, but that was early 2000s. And, I've known Rick over the years through, various other musician friends and that sort of thing. And Rick gave me a call and said that they were looking for a possible new guitar player to kind of take over. And I learned their set. Kind of took a while to do that, I remember. I remember Rick calling you. You say, you ready to come in yet? I was like, no, man, I need a little bit more time. But, just because I knew that they were, even from reading their website, that they were definitely wanting to do the cover songs at this point, fairly authentic and, down to the tones and everything. And I definitely took that to heart for sure. And I wanted to make sure that I was doing that. And so that's probably why it took a little bit longer, but we eventually kind of got things rolling, and I'm just kind of, it's been a blast, ever since, so I've just I definitely kind of here to help keep things moving along, help keep things rolling, and hopefully, come in with a good attitude and that sort of thing. And, we've all, and I think that's another thing why this band has been around for so long. Cause, we might bust each other's balls from time to time, but everybody gets along. We're all friends. So, that's important. It really is. And I think, when you say a lot of these bands that are still around, there's only a handful of them. And I think that's a big reason why, is because, people still get along. You have to.
Well, you are the man with the van, so they kind of need you now, right?
And they need somebody to park that van somewhere. That's right.
Full control. So if anyone shows up at a show and nothing's there, it's Jeff's fault. So,
Yeah, I got a nickname now, and so I got that nickname early on. So
I love it.
The Destroyer.
yeah,
There you go.
the destroyer.
Awesome. So
Yep.
Rick kind of alluded to this, and I was going to get to it, but I'll jump into it now because I know Rick wants to talk about it. So you guys were, originals. Now you're doing covers, and then magically you decide you're going to start this other new band because you weren't busy enough and doing enough stuff as Phonik. Then you guys decided you're going to do something else. So who kind of spearheaded that? And I know the answer to the question on who helped you, but who wants to kind of share the kind of startings or beginnings of Rattle and Hum?
Well, it was our dear friend Howard. He was a fan of Phonik, and we had he invited me out to golf one day at his club. We went out, and he says, "Hey, I'm having a party in a couple months, and his favorite band is U2." And he's like, I love U2. He's like, how would you guys feel about doing the party and doing like a night of U2 songs? And, I said, yeah, I think, we could be into that. But I said, if we're going to learn, spend the time learning, all these U2 songs, we're not just going to just do it for one night. We'd probably, like to roll it into, maybe a tribute band that would, again, if we're going to spend all that time and energy and effort, and he said, I love it. He said, you guys want to do it? He's like, I'll back you guys. I'll financially, he's like, let's do it, and that was that. And, and he was there every step of the way, funding us, from the beginnings to our promo reel, the recording, the video, every step of the way, different, the merch,
The hard beer soul, the lot video stuff.
Yeah. And that's a fantastic reel. I mean, that's studio quality stuff. So Stefan, I don't know if you ever see my weekly picks, but when you guys have been Rattle and Hum and I pick you on my podcast every week, I tell everybody you are Bono. How many times have you heard that?
I've heard it a little bit.
Come on.
I've heard it. I personally, when I listened to me, I said, "Oh my god, that sucks." But I hear it from a lot of people, and I think that's probably why Mike kind of pushed to go towards a U2 tribute, because we were talking about doing tributes before U2. And we're talking,
and I know you love U2, and Bono is, in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, so I think that's probably why my voice resembling somehow the one of Bono, which I'll take as a compliment. But yes, and but yeah, I think that's why we end up doing that. And I'll take it as a compliment. Thank you.
And so Jeff, you play the part with the hat. You get in character. Do you ever forget when you're up on stage and you guys are doing Rattle and Hum that you're Rattle and Hum and you're not Phonik that night? Have you guys ever run into that problem?
Man, sometimes I almost say Phonik instead of Rattle and Hum. We are, and then I have to think about it.
Not really. That's funny that I've never heard Steph say that before. That's hilarious.
I think I said it one time.
Did you?
But
funny. It's funny you mentioned the whole. We talked. We did actually talk about at one point. I remember the conversation driving to some gig, Phonik gig, and I think we were discussing tribute bands, and we knew people who were doing them and that sort of thing. And what did I say, Rick? I said,
Jeff's like, I don't know, but if you guys ever want to do a U2 tribute band, I'm quitting. He's like, I'm out. He's like, getting all the guitar sounds is just too much work. I'm not doing it.
oh my God.
Fast forward.
And here we are.
All right.
Well, Jeff the liar. That's what we just heard.
Here we are. Here we are. And I was like, all right, okay.
I love it.
You know,
And obviously I'm here to help you guys on my end to get the word out, but I still think there's a good number of you, Euphonic fans that still have no clue that Rattling Hum is you. And, I don't know, do we capitalize on that, or do we, continue to put on both? I don't know. I think it's cool either way. But certainly that fan base is growing as well, which I think is just fantastic. In only a couple of years, what's it been 3 years, 4 years, something like that?
well, yeah, we kind of started during COVID, so we kind of had to put the brakes on it for about a year, I think, before we could actually start doing shows. But we were doing rehearsals and that sort of thing. But it was, I can't, maybe 2023, end of 2022, we may have started actual shows, somewhere around there.
Gotcha.
I'm not good with dates, so.
Hey, we're all that way. You take COVID out of our lives and it changes all the numbers when you say how long ago it was, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I do that
yeah.
all the time.
But I know
So-
the discussion had started during, so,
Gotcha.
or maybe
original
even
plan-
before.
The original plan was to learn on the gigs, on the euphonic gigs. So let's just pick a couple of U2 songs to learn at the gig week. And then all of a sudden the gigs are gone from COVID. So it's like, oh, I guess we have to get together and rehearse now.
Yeah.
So it turned into, which has been a good thing because, I mean, the rehearsals have gone well and, it's helped in other areas as well.
Well, obviously, as someone who sees the feedback from the crowd and on social media, folks love what you guys do as Rattling Hum. And, there's shows that you guys are doing at the lake that, people, they're packing it in. And so it's exciting to watch and certainly appreciate being part of it with you guys. So I'm going to ask you guys individually, as a non-musician, I can tell you, I know half of the words to half of the songs that I listen to on the radio. And when I go see other bands, I can sing, half of them or the chorus, and I know that. And this is more on you, Stefan, obviously, but you guys still need to know the music behind it. How do you remember all of this? Like, how do you make your brain, and especially when you transition from euphonic to Rattling Hum, so that's, very specific acting on stage and the music is different. Stefan, I'm going to ask you first. How do you remember all the damn lyrics?
Well, I'm glad you're saying that because the guys are chewing me up because I forget my lyrics all the time. But no, I know. When we started doing the YouTube tributes, we were talking about getting a teleprompter, because it was a lot of lyrics coming in, and being French on top of that didn't help because, it doesn't help because it's not as natural as these guys. But there's some songs I cannot tell you how many times I've listened to them back to back. Like one song is probably in one night 100 times in a row to try just to soak in the lyrics. It's like, but I think the best way to learn lyrics is to play live, butcher it 2-3 times, and then after that it's more natural. But it's definitely a challenge, especially with all the euphonic and Rattling Hum.
Right.
And
Well,
now
I appreciate that you don't use your phone or iPads.
No,
to do that.
I'd rather miss lyrics do that personally.
Yeah, no, applause to you for, even if you butcher it, I'd rather have you screw up a word or two than read off your phone, in my opinion, but that's just me. So, but, Mike and Rick and Jeff, he's got to learn the words, but you got to know the chord progressions and the key notes and everything else. And like, how do you keep that in your brain?
Repetition, really. It's, what do you got?
But you don't have the read with you. That's not fair.
Rick's cheats sometimes. He puts some notes on the floor. So
These are literally all books of handwritten charts.
There you go.
Since I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Well, yeah, it's amazing to watch. And obviously I know the catalog I'll use your binder catalog of stuff that you guys just have in your brain. And I'm sure in your sleep, you're playing half the time or singing the words, but know that from the fan side, we know that that's a lot of work. And then the ones that don't are finding out right now how much work that is. So I appreciate that. So we're getting close to the end. I do want to ask you guys one question that I'm going to be asking all the bands. And again, you guys, I would say, are more the elder statesmen, to say that in a good way, of live dance here in the Charlotte area. You guys have stuck it out. You make it work. You still fill basically every show that you have. What advice would you guys give to bands that are kind of up and coming or wanting to, even start? What would you say is the kind of key to your success?
Well, I think, you got to be serious about it. I know, some people come in, and everybody's got their different level of interest or time they can commit to it. But, if you at least have, let's say, like a professional attitude about it, where, the time commitment necessary to, firstly be good at your craft and want to put out a product, or a production, consistently and be consistent and of course be on time, have good equipment, work on your sounds, your tones, have, and like even like us too. And we'd still made improvements, like, cause for the longest time we were going out, like doing our own mixes. Like we would set up the PA, and then, at some point we were like, hey, we should have a sound guy out front mixing us. And that greatly improved our sound too. And I know for a lot of bands, coming up or whatever, they're trying to get their foot in the door in these places, and, maybe accepting gigs for, not a lot of pay. And yeah, it's hard to pay, more people and have other mouths to feed, like, hiring a sound man and stuff like that. But it definitely makes a difference for sure in your overall sound.
Stefan?
No, I just want to add what Mike said. Yeah, it's all about the product. And I think in our case, what makes us strong is that we, maybe not as we age because we know each other more, but we put a lot of emphasizing on the sound together. We're very particular on how the guitar mixed together, how the bass mixed with the kick drum, and how, as like I just last week, for example, Mike bring a new snare, and I'm not used to the snare. I said, I'm not sure if it fits with the sound of the band. It's most of the musicians these days just make a band and they just show up with whatever gear they have. And to me, sometimes it kills the sound because they don't fulfill the whole spectrum of the frequency well. And I think it's lacking around this area a lot, but you have a lot of good bands, but I think that the sound and the product, like Mike said, choose your set list for the crowd you're going to play for. And to also the show is as much important, like the rattle and hum, for example. Rick spent a lot of time on doing that back screen and all. It adds a lot to the show. So it's the product, and I think that the sound itself, to me, that
I agree 100%. Jeff, Rick, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think it, obviously you want to have your, you want to be able to get along with everybody. You want, blend well together, and you really want to obviously practice, but at some point you need to get out there and do some shows. And if you're gonna fall on your face at the beginning and that sort of thing is gonna happen, but it really builds character, and we've all done it. We've been playing long enough that hopefully it's few and far between now these days. But those battle scars like that, they kind of really toughen you up, and you know what you need to do going forward. So it's at some point you're gonna have to get out there and start playing some shows. Yeah, you can practice all you want. Obviously, you want it great, obviously, before you get out there, but you got to get out there sometime, start playing, get some reps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rick, close us out, man. We're coming to the closer. I want to give you the last word.
Yeah, I think obviously having a standard that you, as collectively, you all agree that you want to stick to whenever you do learn songs, whether it's your originals or covers. But I think probably even more than that, playing in a band with people that are like-minded, and where you're truly friends with people. And in addition, you're at some point, to some degree, you're at the same level in place in life, because I mean, that's how I feel like that's a big part of us being together as long as we have been. I mean, we've seen each member go through their own stuff, or, whatever. And that happens, you kind of just step up and try to help each other out and keep it as a unit, and that just goes back to being friends.
Yeah.
And
I'm hearing the family as well, right? At some level, you guys are family.
Yeah. And I think on top of that, as I feel like a lot of bands, they put something together and they maybe start looking for the greener grass prematurely. Like when it comes to like members, it's like, we'd be so much better if this person was in the band or if that person was in the band. Right. And they don't give themselves enough time to go out and do like what Jeff was saying, is fall on your face a few times, figure out what you're not doing well, make the adjustments, but keep the unit together. Because if you continue to play together, you're going to start sounding like a band. Because those first gigs, you're going to sound like individuals playing parts, but eventually you do start sounding like a band. But it takes time, and if you're just jumping from one to the next every 6 months or whatever, you're never going to get to that point where you're like, man, this is a really cohesive product that we've put together.
Yeah. Fantastic from all of you guys. Every bit of that was great. Hopefully, this will get out in front of a lot of new bands, and they'll take, and heed what you guys are saying. I think it's so important to have that cohesiveness for sure, especially from the fan level. So, as we close out here, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to see you. A privilege to be part of the team with you guys. Looking forward to more years out there. And, I certainly wish you guys all the best, and I'll do my part to help you get there. But thank you for what you do. And for the fans out there, check them out at Phonik.com, U2 Tribute, rattleandhum.com. And they will be in the Lake area several times over the course of the year. Get out there, check us out, come say hello, tell me sorry for the Backstage Pass, and we will see you all at the next show.
Thanks, Colin.
Thanks, Colin.
Appreciate it.